So now we are in the precept written communication tool, and we are in here to look at Leviticus. So we're in chapter 23. So picking up at verse 1 right here where my mouse is at. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel. So Moses, and he just received a commandment, and say unto them, The feasts of the Lord. These are my feasts, which in the next few verses, then he's going to proclaim the feasts that are his. And we need to understand, actually, before we even look at why it's important for us to understand these feasts that he's proclaiming, let's go back to verse 2. So speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, The feasts of the Lord. These are my feasts. See how he says my? Then he's taken ownership, possession of these feasts. Then he's the agency behind these. These are his. So what we'll look at is we'll first understand why then it's important for us to consider the importance of that agency, my feast. So what we'll do is we'll pull up Leviticus, and we will go to chapter 10, and we will look at verse 10, which this thing, then it went over, then we'll bring it back. And here we go. Leviticus 10 and 10. That you may put difference between holy and unholy, and between unclean and clean. Because the Most High, then his feast days, then you're going to be presenting your body as a living sacrifice. Not only that, you're going to be feasting on the Lord's Supper. So you're going to be learning his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So eating that unleavened bread, so drinking that wine, spiritually speaking, that is. So what we'll do is we'll run another precept, and we will go to Genesis chapter 26 and look at verse 30 to build on to this. So, and he made them a feast, and they did eat and drink. So meaning what? We'll now hit Sirach. And we will go to chapter 15, if it'll let us take that. And we have verse 3. With the bread of understanding shall she feed him, and give him the water of wisdom to drink. So this is what occurs during his feast days. Then you're going to be learning. Then it's about knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And it's about the purification of your temple. We'll also pull up another precept, and we will go to the book of Amos, and we'll look at chapter 5, verse 32. Actually, excuse me, that's verse 21. Amos chapter 5, verse 21. Don't know why that was written incorrectly in my notes. So, I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. So, our set apart convocations, then he's not going to be there. Then he's against our feast days, because our feast days are not like his feast days. So we'll look also, we'll run another precept, then we will go to the book of Mark, and we will go to chapter 7, verse 8 and 9. So picking it up at verse 7. So howbeit, in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold to the tradition of men. And this is what we do when we not consider his feast days, and we're not even doing none of his feast days, and we're just doing all of the world's feast days. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold to the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things you do, like Hellaween, like Christmas, like Easter, like Valentine's Day. And he said unto them, full well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your own tradition. So when we knew God, then we glorified him not as God, but became vain in our imaginations. Then we went aside to establish our own righteousness, which our righteousness, we know that it's nothing but filthy rags. So what we'll do is we're now back in the precept written communication tool. So we see the degree of difference that the Most High, his feast days, it's about learning, then it's about purifying your temple, it's about presenting a sacrifice. It's different from what we do carnally, centrally in this world. Just what we had seen in Leviticus chapter 10, verse 10 and 11, that we may pit difference between holy and unholy, and from between clean and unclean. So we're going to look at verse 23. So now my mouse is on the right hand side. So 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh is the Sabbath of rest. And look how he's elaborating on this. And holy convocation. So this is one of his holy ceremonies, one of his holy assemblies. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. So right here in this line right here, it is the Sabbath of the Spirit of God. So he's the agency of this feast day. So the same way in verse 2 of Leviticus chapter 23, verse 2, the feast of the Lord, these are my feasts. You look at verse 3, it is the Sabbath of the Spirit of God in all your dwellings. And he's taken ownership of this Sabbath, and this is one of his holidays that a lot of us, we don't consider. This is one of his days, and it comes every week, and we can celebrate in this one, but we love to party in man's traditions. So what we'll look at is we'll go to Exodus, and we will look at chapter 23 and verse 12 and just run some precepts to see the spiritual side of this Sabbath. Gotta take this down. So Exodus chapter 23 verse 12. So 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the seventh day thou shalt rest. Reason why? That thine ox and thine ass may have rest, and the son of thine handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. Which, leaving this precept, and we're going to head on over to Matthew, and we'll go to chapter 11 and verse 29. So Matthew 11 and 29. And we'll also extend into verse 30. So take my yoke upon you, my spirit, and learn of me. Full thought. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So when we consider the Sabbath day and you look at it carnally, you're working, doing your work, those six days you're laboring. And on the Sabbath, it's a day of rest and refreshing. Carnally, then you do that from retiring, ceasing from your work. When you look at this spiritually, how do you make your weary soul inwardly to be at rest? Then you do that by resting in the knowledge of God. So this is what you're doing on that Sabbath, and you're refreshing in the knowledge of God. We'll run another precept just to establish this, to validate what I'm saying. So we will go to Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 12. To whom he said, this is the rest wherewith you may cause the weary to rest. And this is the refreshing. So it's the same thing that he was telling us in Exodus 23 and 12. That on the seventh day you shall rest. So it'll be a refreshing. So that you, your ox, your ass, then your handmaids, and they can all have rest and be refreshed. To whom he said, this is the rest wherewith you may cause the weary to rest. And this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear. What is this rest? You go to Isaiah chapter 28, verse 10. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So what we'll do is we will run another precept. So we'll also pull one from Sirach. So we'll have precepts from all different sections that is talking about this rest, spiritually speaking. So we will go to the book of Sirach and we will hit chapter 31, which this one will just come back to this other side. And we will go to Sirach chapter 31, verse 20. And here we are. And we'll also extend into verse 21. So sound sleep cometh of moderate eating. He riseth early, and his wits are with him. So that moderate eating, that's moderate learning. He riseth early, and his wits are with him. But the pain of watching and choler, so madness, and pangs of the belly, the sickness, are with an unstable man. So a glutton, a man that's greedy upon all sorts of diverse and strange doctrines, all sorts of meats. When the scriptures tells us to seek ye out the book of the Lord and read, none shall want his mate, for his mouth is commanded, and its spirit hath gathered them, and none of those books are going to fail. If thou hast been forced to eat, so learning any other sorts of strange and diverse doctrines, arise, go forth, vomit, and once you've purged out that unclean doctrine, thou shalt have rest. Because we'll go back to Matthew 11 and 29. Said, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, and you shall have rest unto your souls when you're resting in the knowledge of God. Then this is that spiritual aspect of that Sabbath. This is what that holy day is about. And we will go to Sirach. Not Sirach. We will go to Exodus, that is, not Sirach. We're in Exodus, and we will go to chapter 35, and we will look at verse 2. So 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be to you a holy day. You see that right there? This is a holy day, Sabbath, not Hellaween, not Christmas, not Thanksgiving, not Valentine's Day. A Sabbath of rest to the Lord. Whosoever doeth work therein shall be put to death. So, before we leave, and we will emphasize on this again. But on the seventh day there shall be to you an holy day. Sabbath, that's an example of one of them. And we see what goes on in your resting in the knowledge of God. So, leaving verse 3, then we will hit verse 4 of Leviticus chapter 23. So now we have another topic. The feast of the Lord, holy convocation. So these other set apart ceremonies, these assemblies, which you shall proclaim. So he's given us a commandment, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. Make public notice when they come around during their times of the year. So we'll look at another one. In the 14th day of the first month, at even, the Lord's Passover. So this is another one of his days. Remember in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 2, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, these, the feasts of the Lord, these are my feasts. Passover, then it's another one, which we're going to run some precepts and look at this Passover. So we're still in the book of Exodus, and we will go to chapter 12 and pick it up at verse 21 through 23. Then Moses called, actually, let me highlight this first before I read. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, so draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. So that Passover, spiritually speaking, that's your flesh. Then you're killing your flesh. You're passing over to Christ. So you're passing over from flesh to spirit, from wickedness to righteousness, and you're passing over to Christ. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop. So you got to know what that hyssop is, and dip it in the life that is in the basin, and strike the lintel in the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. So this lintel and the two posts, this outer part of this house, which spiritually speaking, that house, that's you. So you're covering that flesh with the life that is in the basin. And remember that this blood that was in the basin, there's hyssop in it. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. So you endure all the way to the end. And once then you pass over to Christ and you remain in that house, then you don't come back out. You endure all the way to the end. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel, so that life, and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you. Reason why? Because you're redeemed through that life, which we're getting ready to see that later in Colossians. So what we're going to do is we'll also go to chapter 13 and 14. And the life shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the life, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of confusion, Babylon. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial. So that's another one of his days for us to have in our remembrance. And you shall keep it a feast. There it is. This is one of his feast days. To the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by ordinance forever. This is one of these feast days that he's ordained. So you're taking this blood that was dipped in this hyssop and you're striking the outer parts of your house. Then you're covering yourself with his life. Then that's your redemption. You're crossing over from this flesh to the Spirit of God. So to help us understand this life more that's been put on the doors and on the lintels, what we'll do is we will go to the book of Deuteronomy and we will go to chapter 6 and we will look at verse 6 and look at verse 9. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Verse 9. And thou shalt write them upon the post of thine house and on thine gates. So you just remember what we looked at in Exodus. And to build upon this, we will now head over to the New Testament and look at what Paul has to say for all of this. So we will look at 2 Corinthians, and we will go to chapter 5 and look at verse 17. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. So you just remember that. Because then you've crossed over from that fleshly life. You've left that old man behind and put on that new man. So the old things are passed away because you've passed over. Remember, all things are become new. So now we'll go to 1 Corinthians and we will look at chapter 11 and we will look at 24 through 26. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, "Take, learn. This is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me." So that unleavened bread. After the same manner, he took the cup when he had supped, saying, "This cup is a New Testament in my blood, my life. This do ye, as often as you drink, learn it in remembrance of me. For as often as you learn this bread and learn and drink this cup, you do show the Lord's death till he come." And our next precept is we will go to the book of Colossians and we will look at chapter 1 verse 14. "In whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins." And this is what you have to go back and plug in with what we've seen in Exodus. That's that redemption, that life. And we will look at also verse 21 through 23. "And you that were sometimes alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now has he reconciled. So he took you out of Egypt with his life, in the blood of his flesh through death, to present you holy and unblameable and unreprovable in his sight, if you continue in the faith, grounded and settled." This is why back in Exodus, after you've taken that blood and you've strike the door and the lintels, then you stay in the house till the morning, then you don't come back out. "And be not moved away from the hope of the gospel, which you have heard, and which was preached to every creature which is under heaven." And that's a semicolon, so that's a full thought. So these things we have to keep in mind about the Passover. And all of those things you're doing, and it's in remembrance of Christ. So you see the contrast between the Lord's and his feast and the feast of the world. So what we'll do is now we will hit verse 6. So now we have another feast. So now we're at verse 6. "And on the 15th day of the same month, the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord." Which right here, then he's taken ownership again. Then he's the agency behind this feast of unleavened bread. It says, "The feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord, Spirit of God. 7 days you must learn unleavened bread. And in the first day you shall have an holy convocation." So here's a holy convocation. "You shall do no servile work therein, but you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. So you present your body as a living sacrifice, that offering that's you. And in the 7th day is an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein." So we're going to get back into this e-Bible and we'll look at some precepts about this feast of unleavened bread and look at this spiritually. So we're in the book of Exodus and we will go to chapter 12 and we will pick it up at verse 15 and go down to 20. "So 7 days you shall learn unleavened bread." So we're learning this bread of a truth. "The first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses." So you purged out this malice and this wickedness. For whosoever learneth leavened bread, so this wickedness, from the first day unto the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. Because once again, during this celebration, this feast day, then you are presenting your body as a living sacrifice. Then it's about the purification of your tabernacle. And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation, and in the seventh day there shall be an holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. For in this selfsame day, reason why I brought your armies out of the land of confusion. Therefore, for that reason shall you observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. So in the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, you shall learn unleavened bread. So not knowledge that has malice and wickedness in it, and it's knowledge of sincerity and truth, until the 21st day, 20th day of the month at even. So 7 days shall there be no leaven, so no malice or wickedness found in your houses. For whosoever learneth that which is leaven, that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. So he's repeating himself again. You shall learn nothing leaven, so nothing with malice and wickedness. In all your habitations shall you learn unleavened bread. And he told us the reason why. Then we're doing this because this was that self same day that he brought us out of confusion. And since he brought us out of confusion, there's no reason to run back and learn that leavened bread again. So what we'll do is we will now go to 1 Corinthians, and we will go to chapter 5, and we will look at 7 and 8. So we've seen how these holidays that he's ordained, how they go down. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as you are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast. So of learning, of eating that supper, not with old leaven. So you're not learning the same old stuff that he took us out of. Neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So this is what you're doing spiritually with that feast of unleavened bread. Then you're learning the knowledge of the Creator those 7 days. So what we'll also do is we will look at the book of Job, and we will go to chapter 11, verse 14. If iniquity be in thine hand, so in your power, put it far away, and let not wickedness dwell in thy tabernacles. So these are the things that we have to look at when you're looking at that feast of unleavened bread. So the next thing that we'll look at is we will also look at verse 33 of Leviticus. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, so speak unto the children of Israel. So there's another commandment, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of tabernacles. So the feast of this purification of the temple. For 7 days unto the Spirit of God. So he's the recipient and the agency behind this feast day. Just got to remember what we looked at in the beginning of Leviticus chapter 23. So these are my feasts. So right here, then he's taking ownership of this. The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of tabernacles for 7 days unto who? The Spirit of God. And we'll pick it up some more with verse 35. So on the first day shall be and holy convocation. So you shall do no servile work therein. In 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire. So you just remember what we've seen in Romans chapter 12, verse 1. Unto the Spirit of God. And on the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you, and you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Spirit of God. It is a solemn assembly, so this is one of his feast days, and one of his holy convocations. And you shall do no servile work therein. So you already see how his feast days are differing. And just to put that in our remembrance, then what we'll do is we will go to Amos, and we will go back to chapter 5, verse 21. So Amos 5 and 21. I hate, so I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. Because our feast days, and it's nothing like his feast days. Then ours is all vanity. So what we'll do is we will run another precept, and we will go to 1 Corinthians, and we will look at chapter 11, verse 20 through 21. So when you come together, therefore, and this is why he hates and despises our feast days. When you come together, therefore, into one place, this is not to learn the Lord's Supper. There's no learning going on during our carnal, sensual, natural, earthly feast days. So I'm going to say this again. When you come together, therefore, into one place, this is not to learn the Lord's Supper. For in learning, everyone taketh before other his own supper. So you're learning the knowledge and precepts and traditions of men. And one is hungry and another is drunken. So one is hungry because this knowledge, and it's not going to satisfy you. Another is drunken because there's darkness in that knowledge. It's going to cause you to stagger. So let's look also at verse 17. Now in this that I declare unto you, I praise you not, that you come together not for the better, and that's also with Halloween and Christmas, but for the worse. And for this reason, then we have to stay out of this. So we'll go to verse 37. So these are the feasts of the Lord, ones that we just went over, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, so a knowledge offering, bread offering, which that's a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon his day. And we'll pick up some more. Beside the Sabbaths of the Lord, so in addition to the Sabbaths of the Lord, and beside your gifts, and beside all your vows, and beside all your freewill offerings, which you give unto the Lord. So also in the 15th day of the 7th month, so there's some more that goes on with this feast. When you have gathered in the fruit of the land, so you've gathered the knowledge of the land, you shall keep a feast. So you see how these feasts and its knowledge and it's tying hand in hand. You shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. Then he's commanding us to keep this feast when we've gathered the knowledge of the land. So verse 40, and you shall take on the first day, the boughs of goodly trees, so the fruits of goodly trees, and this is all spiritual talk, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook. And this is all spiritual talk. And you shall rejoice before the Spirit of your God 7 days, and you shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. So this is a mandate. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. So what we're going to do is we'll look at some precepts. So we'll go first to Deuteronomy, and we'll look at chapter 6. I believe it was 16 and 13. We'll go there. If not, it's okay. So thou shalt observe the feast of tabernacles 7 days. After that thou hast gathered in thy corn and thine wine. And thou shalt rejoice in thy feasts, thou and thy son, and thy daughter, and thy maidservant, and thy manservant, and thy maidservant, and the Levite, the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow that are within thy gates. So we're rejoicing in this knowledge. Another thing that we'll look at is we will go to the book of Nehemiah, and we will look at chapter 8 and verse 14 through 18. And they found written in the law, which the Lord had commanded by Moses, that the children of Israel shall dwell in booths in the feast of the 7th month, and that they shall publish, so make public notice and proclaim in all their cities and in Jerusalem, saying, go forth unto the mount, so and fetch olive branches, so it's that spiritual talk, and pine branches and myrtle branches and palm branches and branches of thick trees to make booths, as it is written. So the people went forth and brought them and made themselves booths, everyone upon the roof of his house, and in their courts, and in the courts of the house of God, and in the street of the water gate, and in the street of the gate of Ephraim. And all the congregation of them that were come again out of captivity, so out of this bondage of confusion, made booths, and sat under the booths. For since the day of Joshua the son of Nun, that day had not the children of Israel done so, and there was very great gladness because of these booths that they're creating from these branches. So this is all spiritual talk. Also, day by day, from the first day unto the last day of this feast, he read in the book of the law. So you see what's going on during these feast days. At least also this one, namely and particularly. And they kept the feast 7 days, and on the 8th day was a solemn assembly, according unto the manner. So you see what's going on, reading the book of the law those 7 days. So what we'll do is we will now look at this last few verses. So verse 42, so you shall dwell in booths 7 days, all that are Israelites born. So this is a topic. We just looked at a command. You shall dwell in booths 7 days. So all that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths. And this is the reason why, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. So I'm the Lord your God. And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feasts of the Lord. So what we'll do is we'll just run a few more precepts for these booths. And what we'll do is we'll look at Sirach. And we will look at 51. And we will go to verse 21. So Sirach 51 and 21. And that was the wrong verse too, so it was actually 23, not 21. So actually it's Sirach chapter 51 verse 23. So draw near unto me, you unlearned, and dwell in the house of learning. So he's bringing us out of confusion so we can know the Spirit of God. We can have this knowledge, this wisdom, and this understanding. And the final verse that we'll look at is we will hit Isaiah, and we'll go to chapter 1 verse 3. So the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel do not know, my people do not consider. And this is why we have to dwell in those booths. So, that being said, then I'm getting ready to turn this over to Deacon DeForest Smith. Then I would bid you all a shalom and peace.